Hi, welcome to the Careers Unfiltered podcast with Mentoria. You may know your dream job, you may know your dream career, but do you know what goes on behind the scenes in your chosen career path? Have you been able to separate the glamour from the reality in your career? Do you know the good, the bad, and the ugly in your career? Most people walk into their careers without having any idea in terms of what really happens in that career, how to crack success, how to get the right job, how to grow in the career. Don't be those people. Get the ins and outs of your career path through some of the best subject matter experts and industry professionals that Mentoria will bring to you on the Careers Unfiltered podcast.
You know that meme with there's a dog and everything else is on fire and then the dog is in the middle saying this is fine? That's a startup founder, right? That's pretty much, that's how I would describe the whole thing, because you need to be able to be so comfortable with uncertainty that you're thrown out there, you'll be fine. You should be able to say you'll be fine and you'll figure out a way to do it. What we do at Cubotics is we, in a nutshell, we automate the first and last mile logistics in the aviation industry, right? And by the way, let me be very honest, to come up with that particular sentence took us at least a few months. It was very difficult because hardcore engineers here, building, breaking fingers, burning our hands, grease everywhere. People like us, it's very difficult for us to take a step back and look at the overall thing. We are almost always very occupied in the trenches, right? So, what we do here at Cubotics is we are building autonomous vehicles and we're building robots, pick and place robots, automated pick and place robots for picking the bags from the carousel belt at the end of the airport, placing them in the containers, and then the containers automatically go to the aircrafts and vice versa. So the loading and unloading mechanism at in the airport is being automated. An automobile has multiple aspects related to it, right? There's multiple verticals to it. There's the mechanical, there's electrical, then there's the computer science part of it also. And then there's the electronics part, not just the electrical, but also the electronics. So, and because we were building an autonomous vehicle, the sensors, the sensor array, etc., become very, very crucial for us. So it's not just the mechanical side of things that yields a lot of result, but also the electronics and electrical side of things, which sort of includes the computer science also. So I think it's very, very important to identify which part of an automobile would you want to be associated with. But the industry is so advanced and is moving at such a rapid rate that you need a master's, right? You need to know the advanced, because the books that we read, of course, I will not state out loud which books we have read and which academics things we've read, research papers, etc. But we have found ways to get it from different sources. And I often used to tell this to all my the teammates as well, that what we are reading, what we are doing now is what is being taught in the master's universities, in the master's classes in the university, right? So we ended up doing masters without doing a degree. If you feel that you want to do a master's in anything related to engineering, especially when it comes to engineering, it could be any of these verticals, right? Automotive engineering itself is one vertical, but within that also, if you want to do computer science but autonomous navigation, right? For example, or image processing, something of that sort. But focused on the use cases in the automotive industry, do it. I think there is incredible value in having an engineering master's. Especially, this is primarily for the aspirants. If you want to get into it, I'm not saying no, that you cannot do it right off the bat. Many people have been able to do it. You can also do it. But it's safer to do it in the other way. Right? That doesn't mean you don't take any risks. Of course, there are a lot of risks associated with it, but this is just a safer way to do it, more traditional way. Logic. Logic and critical thinking. I think this is an absolute must. If you're not logical and if you're not a critical thinker, you will not make it, right? I think it's a very, very important skill to have, because a lot of times it's not rote learning. It's not only about rote learning. It's also about having your own logic behind it. Why the hell does it catch fire when I'm doing this? Or why is it rotating at a certain speed when I'm putting in some voltage, for example? Why is that happening? That's very important. So logical thinking. Now, when it comes to critical thinking, critical thinking is important for decision making, primarily for decision making. For example, if I'm choosing the material of a certain thing, right, whichever it may be, I need to decide between two things. If you're into building a product, that is. So I need to decide between maybe this and this. Both will have different material characteristics. Now, how do I decide between the two? That's where critical thinking comes into the picture. And that's a very, very minute look at it. When it comes to bigger decisions to be made, like, it's not just about this, whether to hire a person or not. How do I hire someone, right? How do I build a team? How do I present this particular thing in the most strategic manner? That's where, do I take on this investor? Do I take on some more money, right? How do I build the culture? How do I fire someone, right? These are critical decisions are very, very important. Critical thinking are very important for these kind of decisions. Then comes soft skills and other such things. Things like, how do you communicate? What sort of communications do you make? Cold emailing, things like that. All these other skills come into the picture. I'm specifically talking about automotive startup founders, right? So meanwhile, if I'm just talking, if anybody wants to join some of these companies, right, some of the automotive companies, then I think a very, very important thing is a hunger to learn. And that is very, very, how would I say? That's crucial. It's important. If you don't have a hunger to learn, then you'll not get anywhere. You might enter something, but you'll never grow. There's a path that I have for the day, a set of tasks that I do for the day. And most of the times it revolves around pitching and, creating a strategy for fundraising nowadays. Back then it was more into the engineering side of it, right? Now it's more about having multiple meetings, because, like I said, there's a lot of red tape around. So, you're out there talking to people, trying to figure out how best to get to the market as soon as possible. So for me personally, that's how most of the time is spent. And then you come back and then you spend some time on the engineering side of things as well. I mean, financial metrics to an actual matrix when you're solving a 3x3 matrix, for example. So that transition is very, very difficult. The other way is pretty easy. So it is a bit of a challenge. At least in the beginning, it was a big challenge for me to transition that way. But I think over time, I've been able to, thanks to practice or something, I've been able to smoothen it. So back then, what I used to do was, if I had come back from a big pitch and the entire day was spent working on strategies and strategic things, then pitch decks, etc. Then I would come back and then do a little bit of math problem to warm up my brain, and then get back into the engineering side of things. So most of my entire day is spent in that manner. So meetings plus a little bit of engineering here and there nowadays. And yeah, that's pretty much how it is. Yeah. You have to be a very highly qualified person, which is where masters and PhDs come into the picture. Or you have to be a hustler, which is, you have to be open to learning. So if you're a hustler and open to learning, you start at the bottom of the pyramid, but you will grow because you're hungry for learning, you're open. But if you've got a good grade, you've got good experience as well, maybe you've done your masters or something like that in some domain, associated domain, then it helps you transition. I mean, it helps you build relatively easier, right? But now if you're joining a legacy automaker, that's where the difference is. I think I will give them this nugget also of securing your funding, especially when it's in hardware tech and hard tech. Very important to secure funding, but it's also important to not be dependent entirely on these funds, grants, etc. A lot of the times we see a lot of these people just jumping, from one place to another, just raising money from grants and being content. That's bad. That's very, very bad. If you get money, get the maximum value out of that money. right? Ensure that that money, whichever milestone that you're trying to aim for, it's at least 2x, 3x more than that. Right? Aim really, really high, because I know money is easy to come by nowadays because of so many grants, etc. But that sort of dilutes your own potential. Right? You're taking money but not showing anything for it. Show value for that money.